Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. Joining me once again is Richie Schneiderite. Richie, you got a lot to talk about, a lot going on the last couple days. We teased a big announcement. We'll talk more about that too. First, the announcement. This podcast is joining the Believe Podcast Network, which in terms of content isn't going to change anything we bring to you guys. We're still going to be on the same recording schedule. It's basically just going to allow us to expand the podcast. They're going to help us market it. They have a series of Big Ten podcasts that will have access to their hosts for game previews. They're also going to help this podcast grow. So we're going to have a little bit of We're going to have a little bit of advertising on here, but not too much. And the podcast is being brought to you today by BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports contests, and they're the first to market out and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting to props and futures. Head to BetOnline today on your mobile device and make your first sports wager bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV 50, to receive 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. And BetOnline, that's where the game starts.
Yeah, I mean, I know everyone probably has a million betting apps at this point, but what's one more at this point?
Exactly. And 50% bonus for the first deposit.
Yeah.
Can't beat that.
Yeah, you can't. Not at all. And then we're also sponsored by Adam Goldman. If you guys are on the Rutgers Rivals message board, you've probably seen him before. Basically, he's the franchise coach, as he calls himself. Basically, if you're a displaced corporate exec or wanting to put your career in your own hands and kind of want to run your own business, he can kind of help you out. Adam's a Jersey guy. He's been on the Night Report for a couple years now. He's from Watchung Hills High School. Rutgers fan, obviously, and he's a franchise veteran for over a decade. He's using his expertise. He's kind of helping people find their new American dream through a very thorough and free consultation process. So hit him up. It's 100% free, nothing to lose. And then, you could own your own business pretty easily. So give him a call at 844-800-3726 or franchisecoach.net, or even hit me up on social media, and I'll forward his info to you, and you can go from there.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's enough of the advertising. We do have a lot to talk about, like we kind of alluded to. The first thing, Gianno announced yesterday that Drew Singleton's appeal has been denied by the NCAA. He said that there was one more avenue that they could pursue, but it's not looking good for Drew Singleton to play. It seems like the NCAA is kind of talking out of both sides of its mouth with this issue, because they allowed him to play in the bowl game despite him already signing with an agent. And so what's going on with this situation? And it just seems like wrong.
Yeah, I would say basically I think it's tough because, like, if you do the math, he technically has 1 year left because that COVID year was free. So, I mean, technically he could have just could have stayed one more season if he wanted to, but obviously he signed with an agent, and I think that's the big thing. Once you sign with an agent, that's kind of it. So I think they're afraid that if they let him come back, they're going to let everybody come back at that point. And then there's not going to be any point in signing with an agent. It's a little bit difficult because this is a big blow for Rutgers, because they were kind of expecting him back a little bit, and it would have been huge for their linebacker core. There's one guy on the team right now that has maybe more than 10 appearances, 10 game appearances, and that's Jahzion Jennings. I don't even think he has 5-6 starts maybe total in his career, in his 3 to 4 years with the program. So it's very concerning, but obviously Tyreen Powell started to show flashes last year, so he's going to be probably linebacker 1. After that, that's a big question mark, because Jahzion Jennings never really stepped up, so it's either he steps up or you're going to a freshman. You have a lot of freshmen, don't get me wrong. You have Daryl Giajami, who just came in out of Canada, who Shiano loves, but obviously he's pretty raw. You have Anthony Johnson, a 4-star, still pretty raw, still kind of learning position. Even he's a tweener, because he's 240 as a freshman. Like, there was always speculation that he might drop down to the next level eventually, because if he packs on 10 more pounds, he is dropping down. And by dropping down, you mean to the defensive line, not to... Yeah. I just don't want people being like, he's transferring already? No. So, yeah, it's interesting because there's really no linebackers out there. Austin Dean's obviously here for a second year, but I don't know how much you can expect out of him. But obviously these guys all these guys I'm naming are going to have to play. Like, there's no other option at this point. Like, you could run the nickel as much as you want. You still need more than 2 linebackers out there constantly, just rotating in and out. Yeah, they were very involved in the
transfer portal market for linebackers. I just don't get why they didn't actually take one. Because there was a ton of talented guys, even late in the process. A guy like Chris Moll was there all year, and he ended up at Washington after, there was an SI article basically where he was saying he'd play anywhere, and this was from like April. So I don't know.
Yeah. Between him, they pursued Colby Reeder was his name?
Colby Reeder, from Delaware, who ended up at Iowa State.
There's someone else. I think they've reached out to a bunch of dudes. Like, we posted about them. They just never got them on campus, really. Like, it was a little bizarre.
Remember that guy, Jeff Cartu from Syracuse?
Yeah.
They offered, ended up in Memphis. I think they cooled on him.
Yep.
But it's tough. And Shiano talked about this in one of his press conferences, where you have to basically, like, offer a guy and then start the relationship with a transfer portal, because you have to move so quick on these guys, because everything moves at lightning speed in the transfer portal. So it's kind of the reverse of how things go otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I could see them doing in terms of, like, passing down situations, Igbenogsen's big enough to play that, like, safety type linebacker role where he could be a cover linebacker. I mean, I think it'd be interesting, especially when you have such good safety depth. Throw him in there with Izzy and Young back there, and it could work at times, but obviously it's not a full-time, like, fix. It's just like a temporary, like, passing down type thing. It's tough. Like, that linebacker core is going to get brutally murdered, I think, in terms of stopping the run, too. Because as much as I love Tyrene Powell, and he did reshape his body quite a bit, there's still no one else on the other side.
Yeah, no, it sounds like he's turned into, like, this cyborg at, like, 6'5", like, 240. He sounds, basically, from what I've heard, like, he's got, like, the body type and the athleticism of, like, an Isaiah Simmons from Clemson, who's now with the Cardinals. And he's kind of like the chess piece, potentially, on the defense if he ends up developing the way that we hope he is. But moving on to the other side of the ball, it looks like we're getting Aaron Cruikshank back at nearly full speed. Greg said that he's recovered for the most part. They're still monitoring things, but he's made good progress in his rehab. And that would bring such a crucial element to the offense this year, because there's nobody like his kind of speed on the team right now.
There's no one with his type of speed in, like, the Big Ten. I mean, he's quick. Like, obviously he's refining his wide receiver skills. He is a return man first at this point. But, he's almost 100%, and that's huge for Rutgers. You need him out there, because I don't trust Youngblood enough to be a full-time starter at the slot, but I do think he's going to be quite the weapon this year. He's going to keep developing. He's got speed. He's got hands. He's going to help whoever the quarterback is at this point, whether it be Vedral on little slant routes or even end arounds and stuff. He's just that quick. Like, you could use him in so many different ways, so it's huge to have him back and ready to go.
And suddenly our wide receiving core is like a legit middle-of-the-pack Big Ten receiving core between Tosh Harris, Sean Ryan, and Aaron Cruikshank. 2/3 of those guys also being E-Hall guys, which is always a good thing. Have more of their guys making impacts on the team. Never can hurt with the pipeline there. Twitter was also kind of set aflame yesterday by the Dave Ravine posted a deep ball from Gavin Wimsatt to Aaron Cruikshank. I mean, it's on air, but Gavin throws a pretty ball, man, and it sounds like he's really reshaped his body, too, since he got here.
Yeah, if you've seen him, I'm sure most of you have seen the videos. Like, I'm going to try to pull it up later on. One of his videos, there's interviews from last year's games. If you interview or look at that photo and then look at him now, he's just a completely different player. Like, he's huge. He's kind of chiseled now. He's a little ripped. It's the Jay Butler effect. Like, Jay Butler knows how to reshape these guys. It's very impressive what he does and how he does it. But I think even as much as I love that highlight, if you reread the tweet, it says, like, I don't expect him to be game one starter. And I'm sure these guys talk to Shiano before practice and all that. And I kind of agree with him. I still think it's Vedral game one. If you win, probably Vedral game two, to be honest. If you lose, then I think you just start seeing Wimsatt starting to work in more and more, whether it be like a 50-50 type thing to start versus Wagner number 2?
Yep.
So maybe it might be a 50-50 thing versus Wagner, just kind of split up reps or split up series and kind of go from there. And I do think they're going to work Wimsatt in somehow. And I've been pretty adamant. I think Vedral starts, and Wimsatt will be the starter by game 3.
Yeah, and overall, the team will be better this year than last year, but the schedule is just brutal. It's one of the 10 hardest schedules in college football. And that's why those first 3 games are so important between BC, Wagner, and Temple, because those are 3 of the easier games on your schedule. So it's really going to dictate how the season goes. I mean, last year we saw how the 3-0 start, we finished, 2-9? The 2-7 or 2-8 the rest of the season, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you really need to stack those wins early on against your easier opponents. So especially that road game 1 against Boston College is going to be huge. They're starting a whole new offensive line. All 5 guys are new starters. So Shiano's going to have to really bring the heat and pressure those guys game 1.
Yeah, it's tough. Boston College is pretty good, man. I know it's starting 5 new linemen. I know they're missing Christian Mahogany, a Jersey guy who actually Chris Ash kind of ruined and didn't even push really, which whatever. Besides the point, I'm done. I think I'm done talking about Ash forever now. I think that's it. I think I'm done throwing all the little shade at him here and there. But they still have Phil Jerkovich. He's a top tier quarterback, one of the best in the ACC. Zay Flowers is a top tier wide receiver. Jalen Gill is a transfer. I'm not sure how good he's going to be, but we'll see. But if Max Melton can shut down Zay Flowers, if this defensive line lives up to the hype and kind of mauls this new look line for DC, they have a shot. Yeah. It's the linebacker core that worries me because they do have a pretty good running back room led by Patrick Garwo. So I mean, as long as they can hold this run game, kind of get Jerkovich a little out of whack, I think they have a shot. They legitimately have a shot.
Yeah, and the betting lines have kind of reflected that. I think that game opened as Rutgers is a 9-point underdog, and I think it's crawled down to 7 or 7.5 at this point. So clearly there's people who saw value in that number, which bodes well for Rutgers. Shiano kind of touched on the offensive line, too. I think you might have asked him a question about it in the last couple pressers. It sounds like he's liking where things are kind of molding. There's not a starter group yet, but there's so much more talent there this year than last year. But I don't think we can expect this to be a top 3 in the Big Ten offensive line this season. But I think they have the potential to be serviceable and average, which honestly, if they're average, that's something that can allow you to run plays that are right up Gleason's alley. Because the last 2 years, I mean, you could throw the best offensive coordinator in the country on our team, and it's just so limiting because you have a second and a half. How far down the field can you get in a second and a half? And then you have a guy who doesn't have a strong arm.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is they're definitely bigger. They're a lot bigger. You see that? Damn Lancer fly. What do you call it? But they're definitely bigger. You could see that right away. These guys are Colin Pierce 6'7", 3 something. Willie Tyler 6'5", 6'6", 3 something. JD DiRenzo's 3 something. Ireland Brown's 3 something. This is a Big Ten offensive line for a change. Now, how deep does it go is the big question. After the starting 5, there's a lot of question marks. Obviously, Kobe Asamoah is only a freshman. You can only expect so much out of him. Gus Salinskis, while he looked really good last year at times, I still think he's a work in progress. And then the other thing is Willie Tyler was it's just not bigger isn't always better. Put it like that.
Sure.
Willie Tyler was just about average at ULM. If he could be average at Rutgers, that's huge. But it's going to be tough. JD DiRenzo's making a big leap from Sacred Heart to Big Ten football. Ireland Brown's a converted defensive tackle. Who's the right guard? Curtis Dunlap. Curtis Dunlap is what do you call it? It hasn't been healthy I don't even know since he's been in college. I guess he had some stints though where he showed flashes. Now, if everything clicks, this team could be a really good offensive line. Is it going to click? It's tough for you. It's even hard to hit on for example, they took 6 freshman offensive linemen. I bet you they hit on maybe 1 or 2, and that's just how it works. So now you took 4 portal guys. Technically, I guess. 4 portal guys are going to be starters on offensive line. If you count Ireland Brown as a portal guy, technically. So maybe they hit on 1, maybe they hit on 2. And that's big because you're still getting a better unit than what you had. But is it going to be top 3? No. Is it going to be middle of the pack? I'd probably argue yes, pending injuries.
Yeah, and I mean, that would just elevate the offense so much. On the other side of the ball, it sounds like they're pretty high on the defensive back unit. you kind of asked Shiano what he thought about Max Melton compared to his other top cornerbacks. Talk a little bit about his response to that.
I mean, yeah, there's a ton of different cornerbacks on this team now. Yeah, Max Melton is obviously the top tier guy. I still think he's probably one of the best in the Big Ten. I think he's probably, I hate to say it, if he lives up to this hype, he's probably going to leave after this year. After him is where it gets interesting because Kassan Abram was one of the best per PFF last year. I still expect him to be really good. And then Robert Longerbeam too. Robert Longerbeam's been, I know he got a little torched from that little Wimsat clip, but obviously one-on-one coverage isn't the easiest thing to do against Cruikshank.
Yep.
But he's really developed into a really nice player, and it's kind of been a little bit of a steal for Fran Brown down in Virginia. I know people don't want to mention Fran Brown still, but sorry. Yeah, but overall, the unit's making developments, making strides. After those three is where it gets really interesting because you have some young guys. You have like Shaquan Loyal, who's kind of starting to develop a little more, and a lot of people haven't talked about him at all. Carnell Davis is a guy who's kind of rotating between both DB spots. Trying to think, I'm missing someone. I can't think of who. Off the top of my head, the cornerback. I feel like I'm missing someone like pretty like prudent too.
Here, let me take a look at the depth chart.
It's been a while since I've talked cornerbacks.
Yeah, no. Braswell.
Oh, duh, Christian Braswell. He's probably a starter as well if healthy. Obviously, he's recovering from an ACL, so that's a little bit of a tough one. But I talked to his trainer down in the DMV area, and they say he's good to go. He's stronger than ever, and he should be a pretty dominant corner. I know he was pretty good at Temple year 2 when he was cornerback 2 for them. They said when he moved to cornerback 1, he struggled a little bit. Yeah. But, I mean, right, he could be cornerback 3 at this point, or maybe even 4.
Yeah, he was playing primarily slot the year that he like really broke out for Temple, and he had like a ton of intercept. He just played the ball. He was all over like every play towards him, whether it be pass breakups, interceptions, or just having really tight coverage. So we have a scrimmage on Saturday, right? That'll be the first scrimmage of training camp. I guess we'll just have more coverage, as the week goes on, and we'll continue to keep track of how things are going. But basketball also had a practice day open to the media yesterday. It sounds like Pike really likes where this team is, but I mean, Pike always likes where the team is, which is great because he's optimistic. Tell us a little bit about what your overall feel is for the team, and then we can go into like individual guys.
Yeah, so just to start it off before I get in depth with anything, Caleb McConnell wasn't there. He's hanging out with his family. He obviously so I found out like the details behind that. He played his high school ball in Ohio. So he's a Jacksonville, Florida native. Then he went right to Rutgers. He hasn't been home in quite some time, I'm told. He hasn't seen his siblings in a little bit, so he's just hanging out back home. But he's still a workout warrior, so there's nothing to worry about there. The guy's in the gym, what I was told, like 4 to 5 times a week. Now, basically, since he's injury prone in the past, do you want him in the gym 4 to 5 times a week? No, but apparently it's hard to keep the kid out of the gym. Like he loves the game, wants to learn more, wants to keep developing. But regardless, just watching practice yesterday and talking to Coach Pike after, this team's very interesting. They're very, very, very good defensively. I'd argue personally, I know Pike won't say it out loud, especially after making comments last year about his team preseason. But I think this might be one of his best, if not best, defensive team yet for Rutgers. Wow. This is a phenomenal team, up to down, or top to bottom, whatever you want to call it. Caleb McConnell, Defensive Player of the Year. Jalen Miller stuffed Paul Mulcahy twice on one-on-one.
Wow, that's huge.
And Paul's doing like everything, trying to these are like just trying to get to the hoop and lay it in. But like Paul's trying reverse layups, and Jalen Miller's he's just like a gnat. Like, he just pisses you off. It's like these Lancer flies. Just like get off of me, like just leave me alone. Like let me just dribble for a second. And it's like no, like he's just like, I don't want to say he's Jacob Young-esque in terms of defense, but his chest is over the ball quite a bit, just like Jacob Young's was, and he'll piss you off on defense. Like it's funny. Now I think if he's starting to develop a jump shot, it's still not there. It's still a work in progress, but he's going to be really good. Mawat Mag's a really good defender. He's starting to get, what do you call it? Someone asked me after practice. They were like, who stood out to you the most? And my first reaction was Mawat Mag. Like, he just looks completely different. Not that he lost weight, but he changed his body, so it's less skinny, more like a little bit of muscle. He can guard the 1 through 4. I know someone suggested on Twitter like him play small ball 5. It's not happening, but could he do it? I mean, against out of conference teams, I don't see why not. Versus those like 6'7", 6'6" big men that the like Central Connecticut State has and stuff like that. But he just really impressed me. His ability to get to the rim now is like a lot better. He's actually handling the ball pretty well. I think last year we saw him hit a couple threes. So I mean, he's still developing that part of his game. But if you have a lineup with Jalen Miller and Watt Mag and Kale McConnell, I don't know how people are going to score. And then Ken and Cliff down low, like it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a really good defensive team. And then Paul Mulcahy, I didn't even mention. The dude's like 6'7", 6'8", maybe even taller at this point. He just keeps growing, and now he's bulkier. He's got a little more muscle. He might be, just looking based at the team and the photos I'm going to upload later, he might be like the most muscle on the team, honestly. Like wow. He's a little like built here in like the shoulders.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
He was at the KTR event, obviously, and he was like way taller than I thought he'd be. Obviously, I've been to the rack. I've watched him play. Sorry, Jersey Mike's. I've watched him play. You know, dozen times in person. But when you're actually standing next to him and you can see, like, I'm pretty tall. I'm like 6'2", but he was way taller than I was, and the place was packed. But at no point did you ever not know where Paul was. He was just towering over people. Let's talk a little bit about the new guys. I'm sure that's what people really want to hear about. So let's first start with Cam Spencer. It sounds like everybody is just like in awe of how good of a shooter he is, both from distance and as a free throw shooter. I think you were saying that, there was a free throw point of the day where he didn't miss at all.
Yeah, so they do obviously their drills and everything, and then towards the end, like there's a big focus on free throw shooting. Obviously they need to.
Yeah.
It's a big reason why they were shooting 60% the year before, and now they're a little bit higher than that, I think. But he went 20 of 20. Like, he didn't miss. Like, I don't think many people caught that. I give Chris credit because once the free throws started, I think everyone just started BSing and talking. Mm-hmm. And Chris sat there and was watching still, and it's a good little tidbit. Like 20 of 20 from the free throw line is impressive. And if you look at the tweet I put out on the Rutgers Rivals Twitter account, his form is it's pretty like clean. He was they were running one-on-one drills. Like I said before, I forget Cam was going against. I think it was either Oscar or Dean. It was one of those two he went against in one-on-one, and he hit one of those Dirk step back like the leg out fadeaways, and it's just such a pretty shot. Like, it just swished perfectly. Is he going to make everything? No. But is he going to shoot like probably over 40%? I think so. I think he shot 47 last year with Loyola, averaged 20 a game almost. Is he going to do 20 a game? No, probably not. But I think that you kind of can use him in so many different ways. You could just, if you want to like move the ball around with like Paul, Caleb, all your facilitator type guys, honestly, just spot him up in the corner and just let him rip it. Let him just see what he can do as a 3-point specialist. And then at times he could drive to the rim too. He's not afraid of contact. And I think my favorite part of his game is that like he talks shit afterwards. Like, I love seeing that. I love the intensity. Like, I know it's just practice and it's summer practice. It's not even like legitimate practice yet. And he's just like, he's hitting like layups and like a prototypical, like, yeah, one. And it's like, dude, I love this, but this is your team. Relax a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, if you know like a little bit about his background, it seems like it's a very confident family in general. Like, his brother was like, his name is Pat Spencer. He's one of the best college lacrosse players of all time. I think he's second all time in points, first all time in assists in terms of D1. He played at Loyola, Maryland. And then for his last year, he decided, I'm going to play basketball. I haven't played basketball since high school. Goes to Northwestern, averages like 12 a game. Ends up getting like a G League contract, and it's speculated that he might play in the NBA next year. He's on the G League team of the Warriors. So it's a very athletic family he comes from, very confident family. So I'm really excited. And we have him for 2 years potentially. So
true.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, I don't see him going anywhere. I think he's here for 2 years 100%, and that's huge because now you're not only going to have him next year, you'll have Gavin Griffiths too.
Yeah.
Sheesh, the offense is going to look good.
Yeah, which is obviously the Pike teams have traditionally been known for defense, but it'll be nice to have some really potent offensive threats as well. And I think Pike, I mean, it's easy to teach somebody mechanically how to tweak their shot a bit. Even if it takes a ton of repetition, you can build an offensive game, I feel like. defense is so predicated on effort and just like willingness to like grittiness. Like you're either born with that or you're not. You can't really instill that in somebody, but you can help instill the fundamentals of a good shot, or how to take a ball to the hole better. But
yeah. Now Spencer's going to be legit.
Let's talk a little bit about Derek Simpson. So it sounds like everybody's talking about him as a Geo clone. I think you said that to me off camera. He's wearing the number 0. Is it really just like a Geo clone?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's more than just a number. He's wearing number 0, obviously, so everyone's gonna be able to think like, hey, it's Geo-esque. A little shocked they gave away his number just like that, but whatever. I mean, it's interesting to say the least. But yeah, I know. I think he's gonna be a pretty good player. He's gonna play a lot. I'm trying to find a photo of Geo from his freshman year to compare, because based on what we heard is that he came in like probably 15 to 20 pounds heavier than Geo. If you look at him straight up, it's probably more like 5 to 6 pounds heavier than Geo came in as a freshman. It's not a huge difference, but yeah, he's got a really good knack of getting to the rim. He's not afraid to score. He's got a pretty good jumper. He's got an occasional 3-ball as well. I mean, he's just skinny. Like that's his biggest downside is he's skinny. I think he's probably under recruited based on where he played and what AAU programs he was with. He didn't rock with like any of the big names down there, like I forget, New Scholars Academy and all that. He didn't go to the Camden. He went to Lenape. So I mean, he probably should have got a little more attention. But Pike ended up getting a really good player in this one, and I think if he continues to bulk up, there's no reason why he can't be a Geo clone at this point. But yeah, he gets to the rim pretty easily. Decent jump shot. He had a couple lay-ins, and he's not afraid. He's not afraid of contact, despite being 110 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about him because he sounds like a potential offensive spark for this team. He's obviously just young and probably needs some development, so wouldn't expect too much out of him. But it sounds like he could potentially be one of the lead scorers in year 2, maybe year 3.
Yeah, I'll say why not.
Now let's talk a little bit about Antoine Woolfolk. He's the freshman power forward, I want to say. He's 6'8" or 6'9".
Yeah.
What did you see out of him?
I'd say he's probably a 4/5. He could probably do either.
Okay.
Yeah, his nickname's Wolf, which was I thought it was kind of cool. Wolf, like Wolf, like whatever. Yeah, so I talked to him after practice. He told me originally he committed to Cincinnati football. I think we knew he had an offer. I didn't know that he committed technically. But he was focusing on football mostly for the most part, and then kind of got into hoops like his last year or two. Rutgers hit him up. Rutgers got him on campus after he committed to Cincy football, and he flipped right away. He went to Rutgers for basketball. Now, he's intriguing because he's like 6'8", like 240, 250 around that range, like you said. But he's battling with Cliff like with ease, kind of. Not ease, but like he's going back and forth with them. So it's definitely interesting. He's not a bad player. He's very young. He's still learning the game. I know when I asked him about some of his traits, his top traits, or just to describe his game in general, he basically told me, he's like, I'm a defender and rebounder first, and then I'm starting to work on my offensive game. And I think that's kind of what Pike saw, and Pike loved it.
That's awesome. Who do you think has really developed most based on what you saw in one practice from last year?
Probably Mawat. Like I said before, I love Mawat's game. I know he was a little hectic at times and ran around like a nut and was just running into people.
Yeah.
And running people over at one point, I guess, right? Or twice, maybe it was last year. He's starting to refine his game quite a bit. He's starting to slow it down. He's starting to learn the game more, understand it, how it works more. So he's been, I know, like I said, his offense is pretty good. Like, I know it's the JSBL too, what he did the other day and the stats that came out, but he scored 25 in that and went like 2 of 5 from 3 or something. So I mean, it's not all 3 balls. Like the whole team in general is just a bunch of, I don't want to say it's a bunch of dunkers, but like they all can dunk and they can all play above the rim at times. Derek Simpson, I completely forgot to mention, when I was talking to Coach Pike, like, in the post-practice presser, he mentioned that Derek Simpson might be one of the best dunkers he's had at guard since Corey Sanders.
That's wild,
and that's a huge rave right there. So I think he's going to play significant minutes. I think Moat Mag's might even be your 6th man technically. It all depends on what you want. Like, do you want a defensive guard? Jalen Miller, here you go out there, go piss someone off. Do you want scoring? Derek Simpson. All right, go out there, go get us a bucket. We need to get out of this slump. Antoine Woolfolk, obviously back up big. I still think he's probably behind Austin Dean, who we didn't even talk about. Did gain a couple pounds. Dean Reber.
Dean Reber, yeah, Jesus.
Austin Dean Reber. Jesus.
Too early.
Too many Deans. You can see the fucking, like, the bags under my eyes. Still trying to wake up. I didn't get my coffee yet. Yeah, I mean, this team's interesting because you have so many lineups. This is a deep team. I want to say it might be Pike's deepest team yet. I know he probably won't go on record saying it. After the comments he made preseason last year, I think he's not going to say a single word about his team. But it's definitely a very, very deep team, and you have different options that you can kind of throw at people. You could throw a huge defensive unit, like I said before, between Miller, Mag, Connell, Cliff. You could go more offensive. You can go Simpson, Mulcahy, Spencer, McConnell as a 4 at times, maybe. You can mix and match these guys in so many different ways. And this year is going to be the true definition of positionless basketball because you have guards that can play 1, 2, 3. You have a forward in Caleb that can play 1, 2, 3, 4. You have Mawot Mag who could guard 1 through 4 or play 2, 3, 4. You have Austin Dean who can play 4, 5. You have Woolfolk who can play 4, 5. And Antonio Chol's not even here yet, and he supposedly can play 3 or 4, and maybe even a small ball 5 because I think he's 6'7", 6'8". So like there's so many options and so many lineups you can pick and choose, and this is why out of conference play and such a shitty out of conference schedule at times plays such a dividends because you can rotate these guys in, and in the past you're not going to get like an Antoine Woolfolk and Antonio Chol like 15, 20 minutes. Now you play against these guys and you can get them those 15, 20 minutes. Mike's over here taking pictures of his cat.
There's a bird sitting out there, apparently, that she's freaking out about. Sorry, I had to take a picture of it.
Yeah, it's fine. Makes the pod more real.
Yeah. We won't even get into how we recorded this last night, and we somehow messed up the actual recording of it. So
I'll take the blame for that. There goes an hour of my time.
It was we got some good rehearsal for what we're talking about today.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so regarding like McConnell coming back, I think that'll be huge for Mag because Mag is in terms of an archetype, he's very similar to McConnell in terms of what he could be, like a shutdown defender with a kind of developing offensive game. Do you think that Pike is really hoping that McConnell's offensive game takes a step forward this year? Because, I mean, he's shown flashes of being able to be like a knockdown shooter. Like, he hits some really tough shots. Like, he'll drive like to the key and then step it out along the baseline and do these like turnarounds and hit them with ease. But he'll have a wide open 3 from the corner and he'll brick it. Like, he's very inconsistent, but he hits some difficult shots, which shows he has clear potential as an offensive player. Do you think he'll take the step forward this year?
Yeah, I think he definitely will. I don't know how much of a step forward is the question. What do you average? I want to say 7, 8
something like that. Yeah.
I think he could probably get to that 9-10 range. I don't expect him to get much more than that, and that's a big issue why I think this team's lacking offense. Like obviously Pike could have went out and got like a scoring 4, but you probably would have lost a couple guys via the portal. That's just how it works. Like look at UConn. UConn added a random guard transfer, and then they lost Rasul Diggins and Corey Floyd like the next day. So it's very strategic. You can't really just add a guy just to add a guy. Obviously, he knew he was lacking something at his guard spots in terms of scoring, so he added Cam Spencer. And I think that was the only guy he really pursued. I mean, obviously, Pike wants to build this with high school guys. He wants guys that he can develop 4 years and kind of keep going. And, like, for example, like Mawot Mag's going to be in year, 2? Year 3?
I think so, yeah. I think year 3.
Yeah, so, I mean, he wants to be able to elevate guys and just keep like, oh, I have this guy waiting in the wings. Like, let's just elevate him. So Ron's gone, Gio's gone. Now we're going to elevate, like, Paul's going to elevate his game. Now, at the 4 spot, Mawot or Andre Hyatt's going to take over for him. And it's all strategic at the end of the day. But I do think that Caleb's going to take his game to the next level. I think he's a damn good defender. I think he's a pretty solid offensive player. The questionable mid-ranges that he hits all the time, I still question quite a bit because it is the worst. It is technically the worst shot in basketball. Like, it's not percentage-wise, it's not good, but I think he carried them in Notre Dame game based off of solely mid-ranges, and it's like, what the fuck?
He was incredible. What did he hit, like 10 of his first 11 shots in that game? It was insane.
It was that. And if he Now, I don't expect them to do that night in and night out.
Yeah.
Everyone has off nights. Even Ron and Gio had off nights. But I think he'll take his game to the next level. I think Paul's going to take his game a little bit to the next level. And then I think Cam Spencer still. I'm adamant about this. I put this in the war room last week. Cam Spencer is the top scorer on this team this year, and I think that's without question. I think the only person that could and maybe will challenge him is Cliff, because I think Cliff's going to get a lot of buckets down low, whether that be off putbacks or post moves or whatever. He's going to score a ton. Okay, those are probably your top 4 scorers right there. After that's the big question mark. Is Derek Simpson going to be like that 6-man scorer off the bench? Is Mawot Mag going to take his game to the next level like we expect? Is Andre Hyatt, we haven't even talked about, is he going to be able to translate into something on the court? So, I mean, it's an interesting team. Offense lacking probably still. But defense, I think they're gonna hold some people under 60. They're going to hold a lot of teams under 60.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Cliff's offensive game before we talk about some other stuff here. So last year, obviously, Cliff, fantastic dunker, with anywhere within like an 8-foot radius of the rim, he could just like basically turn around and like stick his arm up and dunk. But he had some trouble with touch around the rim when it was more of like a hook or a fadeaway or a bunny shot that you would just like brick early in the year. But he slowly started hitting those shots more and more consistently as the season went on. It sounds like, based on what I've heard too, is his range is kind of stepping out a bit too. Is that what you're hearing and what you saw, that he's kind of taking more outside shots?
Yeah, so I mean, he's obviously not going to hit them all, but he is starting to take. He's showing confidence in his shot, and that's the first step in fixing your offensive game. So I mean, he's not afraid to hit like the open threes. He hit, I think, 1 or 2 yesterday in practice. There was one play where they had him at the top of the key, and in the past we've seen Miles Johnson at the top of the key, and I've said to myself, I'm like, why the fuck are you up there? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not going to
even as a screener, he was too slow to cut in time to actually take advantage of it.
So it was like, get out of there. But now I see Cliff up there, and I'm like, oh, what's Cliff? Is Cliff shooting? And he shoots, and I'm like, oh shit! Like, he actually doesn't have a bad shot. Like, so I mean, it's interesting. He's going to shoot a couple threes this year. It's still going to be mostly post game in terms of offense for him. Pick and rolls, stuff like that. As long as he gets near that rim, he's probably dunking it. His bounce is ridiculous. Other than the cool thing is like when you switch him and Austin Dean again. God damn it, Dean Reber. When you switch him and Dean Reber out, you're getting a totally different center. You're not getting the defensive stalwart that you have in Cliff. You're not getting the bunnies guy in Cliff and the post presence in Cliff, but you're getting a guy that could step out and hit better threes, like a better 3-point shooter, a better shooter in general, and some guy that's a good enough defender that's probably going to piss you off. He's gave Luka Garza fits last year. He gave who's the other guy? John Harrar from Penn State. He gave fits at times. So it's interesting because now like you have a totally different lineup with your second squad. Like it's crazy. This team is deep. Like there's so many. Like I said before, there's so many different combinations. And it's going to be up to the coaching staff to figure out which ones work, which one doesn't, and then kind of figure out which is your best lineup. If you're down 5 or you need a basket, do you go like, hey, Simpson, go out here, have fun, like, or Cam, go do your thing. I don't think it's going to be as much ISO ball. We saw a lot of ISO with Gio and Ron last year, which isn't bad. That's okay. Like they were good at it, and that was kind of how the offense ran. I think this year it's going to be a little different. It's going to be a lot more movement with the ball, a lot more passing. It's going to be a fun team to watch, I think.
And based on what you're saying, Pike had like a 7-man rotation by the end of last year. You think it's going to be more of like an 8, 9, 10-man rotation throughout the year?
I'd probably say yes. Like I said, it all really depends on what you want. Like in terms of, do you want defenders? Do you want scoring? Do you want? You just need a bucket. Yeah, I'd say the starters are pretty solidified. It's definitely Paul in no order. It's position like basketball, like I said before. In no order, it's Paul, McConnell, Spence. Probably could flip-flop McConnell and Spence if you want. Hyatt, Cliff. After that, do you need a big man? Reber's probably your go-to if you need a big man. Do you need a 4? That's where it gets interesting because now you can go Mag at the 4. You could go Reber at the 4. You could go Woolfolk at the 4 at times. Do you need a 2/3? It's probably Mag or Simpson. Trying to think. I feel like I'm missing a guard somewhere. But, yeah, I mean, there's Miller. It really depends on what you want. Like, I don't think there's a true 6-man on this team. I think it's a 6, 7, 8-man, and it's just a matter of they can rotate. One could be the 6 this game, one could be the 6 next game. Like, there's just so many people on this roster that you could play and honestly play confident.
For sure. I'm really excited to hear more about the basketball team throughout the summer and the fall. The last thing I wanted to touch on today is it sounds like the Big Ten media rights deal is kind of taking shape. The rumor is, and this is being reported by John Orand and Andrew Marchand, who are basically like they have the pulse of the sports media industry. Sounds like Fox, that portion of the deal has been long agreed upon. So Fox owns 61% of the BTNs. They're kind of we're playing from the lead here. They're getting the A package, which will be the 12 o'clock game on Fox. CBS and NBC will be splitting the B package. So that basically means Fox will get to pick the game that they want to play on their network at the beginning of the season for each week. And then CBS and NBC will take turns picking the B one. So CBS will have the 3:30 game, which will be replacing the old SEC package. And NBC will get a primetime game on Saturdays following the Notre Dame game earlier in the afternoon. It sounds like the Big Ten was very keen on getting exclusive time slots with their negotiations. So basically, like, this is the time slot we want. This is the only way we're making this deal, and we want it in perpetuity for this, which is going to be huge because, think about it, on football Sundays at a certain time you're switching to NBC because that's when Football Night in America starts. That's when the night game on Sunday night starts. The game of the week is on Fox. And they want to like burn this into your head. Like at this time you turn this channel on. It also sounds like there's going to be a streaming portion of this that's kind of not been announced yet. It's between Amazon and Apple. If I had to guess, it's probably going to be a Friday night game where there's just a game of the week, which is going to be huge because that's kind of like where Rutgers rose to prominence, playing those Thursday night games in the Big East in the late 2000s. I mean, the Louisville game, we don't even need to bring that up, but the USF game, that was the number 2 team in the country we beat. So there's been a lot of precedent for Rutgers having these Showtime games on Thursday nights, and if it's Friday night, it's even better because it throws your schedule off a little less. But those numbers will kind of continue to creep out. It sounds like the only one that has some numbers behind it is the CBS portion of that deal is $350 million to have like 13 or 14 games a year, which is huge.
A lot of money. That's Big East money right there, just for one channel.
One channel for one game.
Not even. I don't even think that Big East made that.
No, I don't think we did either. I think we only made, I don't know the exact number, but it's going to be huge. It's sounding like it's going to be easily over $1 billion, probably more like 1.5, which will be almost $100 million a year for Rutgers. And this isn't even including like the Big Ten Network portion of this. Just thoughts on the media deal in general?
I think it's genius. I mean, the only downside that everyone keeps complaining about is like the streaming stuff. Because technically Fox has FS1 or whatever the hell it is, Fox Live. CBS has Paramount, NBC has Peacock, so they might put some random games on those networks. I think a big thing that people keep forgetting about is I think they own USA Today as well, or USA Network, or USA Channel. So I guess they could probably put it on other channels, not just like, it's kind of like what Fox does now with like, it's going to be Fox, FS1, DTN, and it's just all 3 of their channels. So I think they're going to spread it out a little bit. It's going to be interesting. I think we kind of speculated a long time ago on one of our old pods about the streaming packages because there's so many Friday night games this year in the Big Ten. Between, I think Penn State opens up against Purdue on a Friday night. What do you call it? Rutgers is playing Nebraska on a Friday night. Like those are the only 2 I know offhand, but I'm pretty sure most, if not every team has one this year. So, I mean, it makes sense in terms of streaming rights. And I'd actually be a little shocked if Amazon gets outbid here. I think if Amazon wants it, it's theirs. And I'm okay with it because, like, Amazon, I don't know if you guys have watched Amazon, like, NFL on Amazon. Like, it's not that bad. Like, it's pretty decent.
Yeah, and they're putting a lot of money into it, too. Like, they have Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit are the announcing crew. They have, like, a lot of talent in the pregame show that they're putting on. I think, I don't know the exact people, but there's a lot of former players who are going to be doing that, big-name players. So
And Amazon has their own, what is it? Like the NFL PFF type rankings. Like they have their own Amazon version.
Yeah, they have the next gen stat stuff,
I don't
which
know.
is interesting. It's like, I've only seen like commercials and stuff, and they'll pull it up where they'll be like, this last play had a 6% chance of being completed based on where he was on the field.
It's cool. Yeah, it's something different, and it's going to be interesting. But I do think this is huge for Rutgers. Facility wise, I don't. I mean, they're already getting $100 million towards facilities right now. Add in $100 million, and then all these professors can kind of be like, "Oh, sports doesn't do anything. It's only taking our budget." It's like 1.8% of the budget. Shut up! And plus, it's reeling in $100 million on TV alone. We're not talking revenue. We're not talking concessions and tickets and all this other shit it brings in. But sure, whatever. Complain.
Yeah, and a good deal of people who come to Rutgers specifically because it offers that high-level sports, also with a high-level education. Like, I know that's the reason I went there, is because I like the idea of, right in my backyard, there's a big-time football program, there's a big-time basketball program. So, exciting stuff. Do you have anything else you wanted to mention before we sign off here today?
No, I mean, I'll be at practice on Wednesday, scrimmage on Saturday. Basketball's kind of back, sort of. No, I mean, I don't expect much to come out of the scrimmage. I think it's going to be relatively quiet like everything else has been. Obviously, the single-team news kind of blows, but they said there's one more avenue they're going to try. I'm guessing it's just an appeal of an appeal. I don't know how that works, but NCAA is just fuck the NCAA. They're just a bunch of dicks.
Yeah, I was surprised that they turned it down because you had a guy like Jay Billis who was really pounding the drum for Drew Singleton and kind of against NCAA.
NCAA sucks. It's only a matter until they secede from them. It's going to be I don't even know. You call it the mega conferences, and it's just the SEC and Big Ten. That's all it is. But it's that's all I got. It's pretty quiet off season in terms of recruiting. Some new 2024 offers out there. 2023 is just about done. I think it's going to be portal now. From now until I guess actually post December, you always see like one or two slip through the cracks that didn't sign with like. I'm trying to think who slipped last year.
The Canadian linebacker.
Registered. Yeah, so I mean, it's not done technically, but I think for the most part it is, because you're not going to hear many names. We didn't hear those names until February?
I mean, we heard March, them when they were signing their paperwork. It wasn't like they were being recruited.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. So I think 2023 is done. Transfer portal is probably going to be the thing. I think you'll see one or two transfers out, maybe more, post training camp, just because kids are like, fuck this. I didn't realize I was fourth on the depth chart, even though we probably told you we were fourth on the depth chart, but. Some don't want to hear it. Some want new views, new stuff. No, I guess that's kind of it. I'm excited for this season to get going and get the ball rolling, and I guess we'll hear an announcement in terms of money, in terms of Big Ten deal soon. I know CBS, like you said, $350 million just for that one alone. If you figure the Amazon package is probably going to be $100 million, Fox is probably going to be $400 or $500 million, and then NBC, I didn't even mention, gets prime time. And I know it's package C, but you're getting prime time. I guess that's pretty big.
Yeah, no, I think NBC and CBS are splitting the B package. So, like, one week they'll get to pick B, and the next week the other network will get to pick B. So, probably about the same price.
Like
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for tuning in, guys. We're gonna try and put out more pods a week moving forward. Now that there's actual things to report on regularly, but stay tuned to the boards. And stay tuned to your podcast feed, because there might be something dropping in here before next week.
Never know.
But thanks again for listening, and this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing